show. Right, do we actually get our, oh, there's our vision. Oh, look, there you are. Are we live?
This is what we always do.
Yeah.
I want to make a little supercut of all the. Are we live yet? Yeah. No, we are live. Yeah, we are definitely live.
All right.
I believe we are definitely live.
Well, for those who are listening, welcome to the Eskimo Joyce Show, aka the Say Something sessions.
I've just realized I call us ESPYs.
Well, that's cool too.
I can't help but notice that 1, 2. There's only 2 of you.
That's a very astute observation.
It's a good observation because look, Joel's lazy, and no, he was unfortunately held up, and he is in the studio recording a band today and could not get out of it. So it's just the most handsome members of Eskimo Joyce.
Yeah. I'll try not to take it personally. It's a shame because you guys might be able to speak for him a little bit, but I am very curious to hear how because he had to go through 2 weeks of quarantine, didn't he, to get over to Perth? Back, it must have been a few months ago now, right?
Yeah.
I'd be curious to hear some reflections on what that was like.
Some stories from the war.
Well, we weren't there, but I can.
He had a little kid as well.
I can repeat his stories. He said that it was better because he had his family there, so it wasn't just in total isolation.
But it was also worse because he had his whole family there.
Yeah. One of those.
But I think they tried to work, and like Joel was doing online songwriting sessions with people, and there was babies screaming in the background, and so it was pretty intense. I mean, everyone's kind of different with that being stuck in a hotel room thing. I mean, we talked to Sarah McLeod, and she said she loved it. She had a great time. Just the time flew by. For me personally, I don't know about you, but when we book hotels, I always try and ask for hotels that has a window that opens.
Yeah.
And
that would be the hardest thing.
And it's recycled air.
And they weren't actually allowed to leave the room for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
No fresh air for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think I'd struggle with that. I don't think I'd struggle with the isolation as such, because I tend to lead a fairly isolated life anyway. But just being stuck in a room, and especially if you didn't have a window, oh my God, 2 weeks, that would be enough.
Especially
me a little bit nuts.
Joel has been known to drop a fart that so you probably have to go to the bathroom under the exhaust fan to drop one.
Do you know what's fascinating about Joel? And we can talk about him because he's not here.
Exactly right. That's what he gets for not being here.
But having known Joel for most of my life, I am amazed by his ability to nap anywhere.
Oh, he's the master.
I think the downside is he doesn't sleep through the night much. But whenever we rock into hotels, and he'll just kind of get in there and he'll sit down on the couch, and I look over, and the next minute he's just napping.
Yeah,
he's sleeping, and
so 20 minutes like that.
Yeah. So I feel like maybe that could have been an advantage, being in a hotel, just being able to nap anytime, any place.
I was having this exact conversation with a friend the other day, saying that Joel's the king of the power nap, and that's like the perfect preparation for becoming a parent.
Yeah.
No, I envy that.
Everyone sleep when your kid sleeps, and you're like, well, that's all very well and good, but literally the house is a mess. Everything's falling down. I've got things to do. My kids are asleep. I'd love to go to sleep, but I can't.
Yeah.
I just to all those people who are just starting to tune into our Say Something session, we are joined by none other than Kevin Mitchell, aka Bob Evans. So say hello, everyone. Hi.
Hello, everybody.
And Kev, we're in Fremantle in our studio. Whereabouts are you broadcasting from?
I'm broadcasting today from my garage in a sleepy little suburb called Ocean Grove, which pretty much lies on the western tip of Port Phillip Bay.
Lovely.
In Victoria. So as you enter the bay, it's this tiny little, I didn't realize until I moved here just how narrow the entry point into Port Phillip Bay is. But you got Mornington Peninsula on the right, or to the east I should say, and Bellarine Peninsula on the west, and so we're on that little western tip. So when the big ships come in and out, they have to go through this tiny narrow little channel, and when you're standing where the lighthouse is or whatever, it's like they've only got like a couple of 100 meters grace on either side of these big boats to get it right. And yeah, they look close enough to touch. You know, it's pretty amazing. You know, well, I dig that kind of stuff, but I'm a bit of a dork, so.
It looks like for those people who are watching as well, it looks like we're in some kind of jam room and there's guitar off the wall. Whereabouts are you?
It's my garage. So yeah, look, it's a very humble. It's a humble setup. I don't know if I can. I just have my stuff. You know what it is, it's also, you know, and you might be able to relate to this at some point in your life. It also becomes the designated place to store junk.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, if something doesn't fit in the house, it inevitably ends up in here, and then I have to find somewhere to fucking put it. So yeah. So man cave / storage room.
Well, and is this where you demo and write your songs?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, the record that I've just made that's coming out next year.
Sorry, what's the name of the record again? I should know this.
I don't know if I'm allowed to say what it is yet. I don't think it's been.
You haven't announced it yet?
No, I don't think so.
Oh,
no.
okay.
Single.
All right.
Album.
Yeah, the single's called Born Yesterday, but no, it's the first record that I've actually written from scratch here, because the last record I made was called Car Boot Sale. That came out in 2016, and that was a couple of years after I moved out here from Melbourne. But most of the writing I'd done before I moved here. I didn't write that many more songs for that record here, I don't think. Maybe one or two. So this is the first record that has kind of right from the start has been written and made in this little room. So yeah, and I think it's, you know, all the better for it.
Well, I've got a bit of a triple barrel kind of question.
Bang, bang, bang.
A bit of historicals in there. I just started watching on Disney Plus the Taylor Swift documentary, which is her getting in the room for the first time with the people who she made Folklore, her most recent record with.
Okay.
And I've never been like a Taylor Swift fan. Like I've gone, oh yeah, she's okay. But Folklore is one of those weird records that's just come out that I'm like, everything kind of works about it for me. She like the artwork's cool, the songs, the production's cool. And she made it with the dude from the National at this studio. Well, they were all remotely, like, so she was actually recording and writing all of her vocals in her house, which she'd never done before. And she was like kind of out, and they sent a shit hot engineer to come and record her vocals, of course. So that's the first part of it. I was just leading my way into.
Well, can I cut in? Can I cut in at that point and just and because on that note, I also heard that new Taylor Swift record and gave it a listen and really, really liked it. The funny thing is, for me, like I've got two daughters, 7 and 9 years old, and for the last however many years, 5 years, they've just been the biggest Taylor Swift fans. Like we bought her last 3 albums before this one. I think maybe more than that. We bought Red, we bought 1989, we bought Reputation, and we bought, maybe those were the only 3, right? So 3 Taylor Swift records, listened to them in the car all the time. She was like my daughters, both my kids, one of their favorites, right? And I was kind of like, oh yeah, like I got to appreciate it. I wouldn't listen to it in my own time, but after numerous listens, I was like, yeah, and I respect her. She's a proper songwriter, and then she put out this new record, and I was like, oh, I'm really digging this. Like, this is really cool. I was like, my oldest daughter's name's Ella. I was like, Ella, Taylor Swift has just like dropped a new record, and it's really, really cool. And I play it to her, and she's just like, oh, I don't really like Taylor Swift anymore. I was like, oh, God, come on.
I had the same experience with my kids. I'm just like, guys, let's listen to new Taylor Swift. They're like, no. They just want to listen to hardcore rap now. But
Ella loves Hilltop Hoods.
There you go.
Ella loves Hilltop Hoods.
So my second part of it is, did you watch the Cats movie?
Oh, I did, yeah. Oh, did I? I don't think I made it through. It was shit.
It was shit. Apparently horrible, but to anyone who's watching, I do respect that you can recite the songs and the dance routines from Cats at any point in time? Can you just sprinkle a bit of Cat's magic?
I think I might need to drink more wine. It's true. My mum took me to see Cats the musical at is it the Regal in Subiaco? Or His Majesty's, the Regal?
Regal Subiaco, yeah.
Yeah, Subiaco, at that theatre. And it must have been about, I don't know if it was right at the end of the 80s, right at the start of the 90s. I'm not sure, but somewhere around there. And I fucking loved it. I absolutely loved it. And I'd seen musicals before, but it was definitely one of my favorites. And so, of course, we bought the double CD after the show, and I used to listen to it all the time. And yeah, I memorized most of the songs, and it's amazing how that stuff just stays in your brain. Like, there's stuff that I forget the lyrics to my own songs that I wrote, like, in the last year or two, that I'm performing all the time. Yet I can just, like, a Cats song, I can just remember like that. But you're not going to get a performance until the end of the
Phone numbers before 1990 and Cats the musical.
Yeah. And as kids get older, you start introducing them to things from your childhood. And I remember popping on Starter Rap for the first time, and literally knew every single word straight away.
Yes,
and the stir Starter Rap.
That's right. Oh yes, I remember that was huge. And another song that I can still remember, I think, like probably the entire first verse, if not more, is "Ice Ice Baby" by Vanilla Ice.
That's a universal.
Right, stop. Collaborate and listen. Ice is back with the brand new invention. Something grabs a hold of me tightly. Something like a harpoon, daily and nightly. Will it ever stop? Yo, I don't know. Turn out the lights and I'll glow to the extreme. I rock 'em out like a vandal. Light up the stage, I wax a jump like a candle. Now that came out when I was in year 8, I think. It's just this stuff just lodges in your brain and it just stays there.
I just never could gel with rock a mic like a vandal. Like, what does that even mean?
What wax a chump like you can do?
I thought it was wax a chump like a candle. Like a candle.
He's right. I thought it was wax a chump like you can do. And it's like, no, apparently it's candle.
Well, candle does rhyme with vandal better than can do.
I'll give him a text.
All right. So what we like to do at this point in time is open up to fans and people who are tuned in, because many people have many questions for you, Kevin.
Oh, good.
So what have we got?
Kev and Kev. This is in New Zealand. That got really confusing.
Kev and Kev.
Kev and Kev. Any more basement birds?
Oh God.
Well, is that a hard no? I think we revisit this in drunken conversations every once in a while. I think it was a miracle that we managed to pull off one basement birds record. We literally wrote, recorded, and toured that album in the period of 8 months.
Yeah.
And I think I was the only one with children at the time, and now we all have many children. So.
I think Josh had. Because Josh's partner was pregnant when we were on the tour, wasn't she?
Yeah.
So, he and I was still. We started having kids in 2011, so the year after the record came out, as it turns out. Look, I have nothing but fond memories of that time, and it's funny, because at the time I didn't realize this, obviously, but now I can look back on it and realize that the following year, my partner and I had our first baby. And so 2010 was kind of like my last year of,
living dangerously,
pretending I was still 17.
I do remember we drank a lot of booze.
Oh, sitting out on your deck. I mean, we must have spent, particularly me and Steve, must have spent more time sitting out there drinking cask wine and smoking too many cigarettes than we did in the room actually making music. So I do remember that we often, the dynamic of the band was like you and Josh were mum and dad. Yeah. Me and Steve were the kids.
The naughty kids. Yeah. Well, the one thing I'm really proud of with that record is that, yes, we wrote it, but we also wrote it, recorded it, and mixed it you know, with Andy Lawson ourselves and put it out, which is, I think, a great effort. You know, like we toured it, and it was a really nice, had a kind of like a time length, and we put it out. I would totally do it again, just because it was amazing to do a record where you only really have to write 4 songs. And
Yeah,
everybody does that. You got a whole record. It's amazing.
absolutely. Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense.
We've got another one. It's just a comment from Helen Inwood, and I'm glad I reread that. Loving Born Yesterday.
Oh, thank you.
Great to hear a song with sax.
Sax, it's got great sax appeal. Yeah, so yeah, look, I mean, there's a glorious saxophone solo.
Was that
in
just
the song
into the adult contemporary section of the arias?
I think the saxophone has clearly, after being, you know, like a lead instrument for so many bands in the 80s, something happened in the 90s and it just,
I think it was
killed it off.
I think it was a Lost Boys soundtrack. I think that just killed
it.
But they saw that oily, muscle-bound torso with the little rat tail.
What was his name? He put out several records as well. That guy.
Don't care.
Yeah. But no, I just started becoming drawn to it again. And there was a song, and I think I might have seen you guys put this song on a Spotify playlist. That song "Summer Girl" by Haim or Haim.
Oh yeah. That's such a
that's such a good song, and that's got sax predominant. That's a really you know, big part of that song, but it's more of the kind of Lou Reed kind of way. But the sax in Born Yesterday, I think it's not like people have just, you know, name checked Careless Whisper, but I think that's lazy, right? Because Careless Whisper is probably like one of the most famous kind of sax riffs and solos. For me, what it reminds me more of is the saxophone in I've Had the Time of My Life from the Dirty Dancing.
Oh,
another great musical. Well, it was made for the film, but anyway.
Here's my question to you, Kev. Is saxophone like bound and gagged forever in nostalgia? Like, can you look to the future with the saxophone?
I think, well, it depends on what you're doing with it. I think, like, you know, it depends on how you use it, right? I mean, there's another song on the record, which is the whole reason the sax player was there in the first place, as part of a brass, you know, little 3-piece ensemble of brass players playing on this other song. But no, I understand what you mean, because yes, it does evoke for me, as I expect it does for many people of the same generation, a very particular sense of nostalgia, and that's exactly what we were trying to create for the song. So we just lent into it so hard, and it was probably my favorite day in the studio, because it was one of those moments in the studio, you know, where like, and it's always the stuff that you don't write yourself. It's like when you have someone else come in and do something and you just don't know what you're going to get.
Third dimension comes in.
And it's so exciting and fun. And, you know, Carl Mackey is the name of the saxophonist on this song. And he came in and you know, and he came in to do this other song. And when they finished it, me and Stephen Schramm, the producer, were like, hey, look, there's this other song that kind of you know, it was supposed to have a guitar solo, of course, and we hadn't gotten around to doing it. And it just felt a little bit, yeah. And we got this idea, like, oh, you know, saxophone. So we were like, there's this other song, we'll just play it, just solo over this bit, just go for it, you know, let loose, be as, you know, if you think it's feeling cheesy, take it up another level.
Nice.
And he just went for it, and the end result is just, I mean, it's really, really fun, but it's also kind of like, it's really, when it comes in, and because it's just doing, I guess it's just doing something that I wouldn't have written, and doesn't come out of my head. So it just sounds really like left field. And it just, for me, it was just so exciting. And I knew that people would enjoy it, because it's fun. It's really, really fun.
I think it's also, you give yourself permission to enjoy your own music because you didn't write that bit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
When you listen to
Yeah,
it, you're like,
yeah.
this is so sick, even though it's your tune, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
I reckon the last person to sneak in a legit sax solo before sax went bad was Lenny Kravitz with "Let Love Rule."
Oh yeah. Okay.
He played that too. He's one of those guys. Like, who played the drums? Oh, it's Lenny Kravitz. Who sung it? Oh, yeah, Lenny Kravitz.
He was.
Yeah, totally. All right, another question.
All right, here we go. EJ, this is from David Corbett. Thank you for joining the live stream, David. Hey, EJ, did you ever pay for the food you ate when you bounced on the diner in the Who Sold Her Out film clip?
Well, that's the magic of filmmaking, where we didn't.
Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it.
No, we didn't. We ran for it.
We actually ran for 9 hours straight. We did 50-meter sprints behind a Harley Davidson with a cameraman on the back. And I'm not even kidding you, because we finished at like 4 o'clock in the morning at some multi-story car park. And then the next day, I literally couldn't walk.
I felt like I
couldn't even get out of bed.
I felt like that. Did you ever see that movie Top Secret?
Oh yeah.
And
you felt like the cow.
Yeah, the bit where he gets raped by the cow, and he's just like, which is not even correct because it's a bull, right?
Yeah.
You know. So, yeah.
Is it slow motion running?
Yeah. Well, yeah, everything was sped up. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm pretty happy. Well, I miss doing millions of video clips because there's not as much of those things happen anymore. But I don't miss singing double time at night.
Yeah. There's a Jebediah video clip called "Feet Touch the Ground" where same thing. We do lots of running in slow motion, and exactly the same thing, Stu. Like,
yeah,
the calves were just so sore.
Oh.
Because we're musicians.
Even just putting the sock on, even just putting the sock on before you had to catch the plane. But the worst thing as well is because you're singing double time and running. So who's all right? Yeah, we sold her out. Who's all right? Yeah, we sold her out.
Yeah, yeah.
Who's all right? It's like,
I know. Yeah.
I think of a worse way to spend 9 hours.
Yeah.
Got to know Melbourne back streets pretty well though.
That
We
is
ran
true.
down every single one of
That
them.
is true. Loved it.
Yeah.
Sarah Pond, I want to hear Kev sing Memories. Maybe that's your next cover.
You know, it's funny because Memories is probably, well, without a doubt, that is like the kind of flagship, the signature tune, I suppose, of that musical.
It's a big thing.
Yeah, and it's a pivotal moment. It's the big, you know, big song and the third act, but it's not not one of the songs I gravitated to because I liked the story, the character songs. Memories isn't so much of a character song. It's performed by one of the characters.
We're still waiting to break into.
I like the songs that were like where the characters sang about themselves.
You got one for
like McCavity,
yeah,
for example. McCavity the mystery cat. McCavity the mystery cat. He's called the hidden paw, for he is a master criminal who can defy the law. And Magical Mr. Mistopheles, who is kind of like Magical Mr. Mistopheles is kind of like the sex god, right? He was definitely the rock star of the group. You know, his song was, "Oh, well, I never was there ever. I got so clever as Magical Mr. Mistopheles. My manner is vague and aloof. You would think there was nobody shyer, but I was heard on the roof when I was cut up on the fire, and I was heard by the fire when I was about on the roof. It was even heard that somebody purred, which is incontestable proof." And then one of my other favorite ones as well was there was the duo. Mungo, Jerry, and Rumple Teaser. They were like have a wonderful way of working together, and some of the time you would say it was luck, and some of the time you would say it was weather. We go through the house like a hurricane, and no sober person could take his oath. Was it Mungo, Jerry, or Rumple Teaser, or could you have sworn that it might have been both?
Do you know what? It's
I want to see lots of virtual hand claps.
Yeah. Come on, guys, we're waiting.
Just fill up the stream with virtual hand claps.
We're waiting for the virtual hand clap to
If I don't
kick in.
see any, we're just going to boot people if they're not clapping.
You're gonna that number that you see of people watching is just going down. Like,
What I love is the change in your face when you go into
well, you
in
gotta get.
like you come alive, but then also the back and forth from the camera.
Well, it's gotta get.
It's God, you.
Yeah,
You
just
had
get
a
into.
media act, I think we it wouldn't have been the bomb that it was. So.
All right, here we go. A new question. Oh, look, we got some hand claps. Thank you. Nikki,
Sympathy, sympathy claps.
Sarah just said clap. She typed it.
No,
that's good enough, Sarah.
Thank
you know,
Hey, you should probably see a doctor about that.
I say.
Oh, also, Sarah Pond. Yes, you can buy the vinyl of Black Fingernails Red Wine online, and it will come shortly. It'll probably come from the East Coast, but they might have stock here.
And anything that you can't find online, just flick us an email or flick our management an email, or just DM us on the Facebook.
She has, yeah.
Anything you can't find, we'll find for you. It's all good.
Hey guys, do you want to see my mask?
Yes, please.
Because because I thought, like, you guys in Perth have had it incredibly good, like incredibly good. And I'm really, really happy for you. But here in Melbourne, today was the first day in let's call it 3 months, where when I went to pick up my kids from school, I didn't have to wear a freaking mask.
Wow.
And we got, I think everybody got so used to it that it was weird. Like the first day that I had to wear one, I was sitting in my car to get out to the shops. I was like, okay, I've got to wear this mask. Really self-conscious, like. And then, like, after 3 months of doing it, it's like the opposite. Now it felt really weird to like go out without one on. But I got this little number, so I took a photo of myself wearing it just for prosperity, because it's a pretty interesting time in history. But this is what I've looked like for most of the last 3 months.
Nice. Got a kind of Bane Batman.
I was just going to say, like, everyone's just walking around baning it up.
It's reversible though. Check this out.
Oh, look at this. Oh, there you go. That's fashion.
And if you don't, you
can buy face masks on the Jack London website.
There you go.
Of course you can. Of course you can.
Yeah.
Of course you can. But you really get a good, with the reversible face mask, you really get a good indication of the content of your breath. I got to say, there have been times when I've been a little bit taken aback.
You kind of appreciate your partner a little more as well.
Yeah. Well, I've said sorry to her many times before, so.
I think it's generally my kids who suffer the most. When you go in, to say goodnight at the end of the night, and once again you think of wine, and and they're not. They'll tell you. They'll be like, "Oh, you're." I remember, Daddy needs his wine and his coffee. Daddy's not a good daddy. So. I
remember, there were some mornings. This hasn't happened for ages, but my youngest daughter Ivy, when she's 7 now, but when she was about 3 or something, I can definitely remember some mornings where we're in the bathroom in the morning and got to brush her teeth, and I'd got the brush and open up, and start brushing, and while I'm brushing her teeth, she's like this, and she goes like this. Like, Daddy had a late night last night, sweetheart.
All right, there's a good one from Chris Paddock. Thanks, Chris. What would all you guys say is your favorite movie soundtrack?
Oh, great question.
Movie soundtracks myself.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question, because my wife and I have talked about this often recently, actually, about how, in the 80s was such a gold, and I guess a little bit into the 90s, but the 80s was a really fantastic decade for movie soundtracks. And often the songs eclipse the film in terms of their popularity and everything.
Baby Driver. That was the movie.
What about
Killer soundtrack?
What about and Drive was a recent one.
Oh yeah, Drive.
That was good.
That was a bad movie.
Killer soundtrack.
My favorite movie soundtrack of all time, and not necessarily that I think, it's fucking good. It is really, really good. But it's also, like anything, the reason why it's my favorite is because of the time that it happened in my life. But the soundtrack to the movie Singles was
yeah, grunge,
awesome.
man. That was
And
big.
the movie, and this thing is, like, I actually tweeted this a couple of years ago as I was thinking about it, and I was like, I know I watched that movie, but I cannot remember a single fucking
It was
you can
thing about
remember
it. But like, that's
Chris Cornell.
the
Yeah.
songs. Yeah, totally. It's got I Nearly Lost You.
Yeah.
It's got, there's like a really great Smashing Pumpkin song on there. It's got the best, like, probably my favorite Pearl Jam song that they ever did isn't on any of their records. It's on that soundtrack.
Yeah.
Which is a song.
We both owned it, and we coveted our singles album for sure.
It's so good. I revisit that record every couple of years. You know, maybe just for a bit of, if I'm in the mood for a bit of a nostalgia hit. But honestly, it's just still good. So if I had to name my absolute number one favorite, it'd be that.
Good call.
What do you reckon, Kavzy?
Well, I think that's a really fair call, because I mean, I remember when the singles album came out, and it switched me on to a lot of music, and like bands like the Screaming Trees, who weren't kind of mainstream, and even had Daniel Johnson with Casper the Friendly Ghost, you know, who we now know as this kind of seminal character. You know, there was lots of really amazing songs on it. As the Emily soundtrack, I think I go back to a lot, just because it's just absolutely absolutely.
Just watched that the other night.
But what I was going to ask as well, is with the grunge thing, is, do you think it's now been enough time that you can revisit that and it feels like kind of cool again? Because there was a long period where it was like, you know, like,
are you asking permission?
Well, I feel like that was a large part of my youth, you know, all those bands, you know, were like huge, you know.
No, to be honest with you, like, it never, you know, I guess I hear what you, I know what you mean in a way. Like, I suppose there were years where, you know, I wasn't listening to that music, or even kind of like, you know, necessarily sort of celebrating it, not because I'd moved on, just, well, I don't know, just because there was other music to listen to. But there's nothing guilty about the pleasure of the music that you listen to during your formative years, you know. In fact, the idea of, and I know you didn't say guilty pleasure, but the idea of like having a guilty pleasure, I think is, I don't subscribe to. I think if something makes you feel good, then there's absolutely no reason you should feel guilty about it, unless, of course, it's causing harm to other people. But if we're talking about, you know, like just liking something, whether it's music or a movie or a sport or whatever, and you gain pleasure out of it, like, why feel guilty? You know, so people often talk about, you know, John Farnham, The Voice. It's like, you know, guilty pleasure. It's like, fuck feeling guilty about it. Just take the pleasure.
As far as
I've got to say, just to kind of kick back against it slightly. I mean, like, all we have when we're growing up is like kicking against what our parents listened to and what they were into, so we can form our own identity of who we are and who we love. And a really important part of that is saying that's fucking shit and that's awful. You know what I mean? That's important.
But I don't think anyone ever said that about Whispering Jack.
They didn't.
No one kicked against that.
But I want to use this as an example. Like, in Germany, like post World War II, they'd lost the war. Everything was going terribly. And so the government had this massive push, and they've got a German word for it, but it was basically translated to happy music. The only music they were allowed to put out was like, everything's great, we didn't lose the war. And what the counteract to that was, all of these disenfranchised youth were like, what are you talking about? Like, we've just gone through this traumatic experience. And the electronic scene that came out of that, which formed like Noi, all those bands, was really important, because they kicked against, they were like, we're not happy. We don't want to listen. That might be a guilty pleasure for you or whatever, because it makes you feel good, but it is completely irrelevant to our lives. And that's why I do agree, but I have to say that music is completely subjective. If it means something to you, then it means something. But I have to say, I do think there's nothing wrong with each generation kicking against the generation that was just before.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a necessary part of kind of, moving forward culturally.
Your favorite soundtrack?
But like,
Well, sorry, back to soundtracks.
Yep.
Yes.
Gotta answer these questions.
Okay, my favorite soundtrack is going to be I'm going to
Frozen.
Or a Picture Show.
Rocky Horror, that's a good one.
Oh yeah, love that. Love that.
Look,
Awesome.
it's gonna be hard to go past in terms of just pure songs. I reckon it's a very cliched, but the Big Chill, it's like ridiculous amounts of joy.
So what's on the Big Chill? What
Every
songs are we
single
talking?
good song from the 60s.
That was like
Heard it through the grapevine,
Yeah, yeah.
like some Rolling Stones.
that was
on
like
there.
another 80s movie that
Yeah.
no one remembers the movie, but everyone had owned the soundtrack, right?
Hey, you know
what? I reckon, honestly, one of my favorite soundtracks of all time is the new Blade Runner.
Mm.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
phenomenal. For those
There was
headline moments.
what was the movie? I remember it was when I was only at uni for like a year and a half, but I remember doing one of the courses was film studies, and one of the movies that we had to study was Easy Rider.
Oh,
Easy
yeah.
Rider. That was like a really interesting film in that there were just these long moments in the movie where you were just listening to music and just watching people ride motorbikes. There was no dialogue, there was nothing. And that had great music. That had an awesome soundtrack as well. That's going back to probably the 60s.
Some movies you're watching and a scene is literally 90% the soundtrack. Like it just makes such a difference.
Yeah.
Who they've chosen to create the soundscape for it. There was a movie called Shutter Island.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And he's walking into that cave for the first time in the side of the mountain. And there's this John Cage track. It's like a prepared piano and all this weird sort of piano stuff. And it's just so like disturbing and unnerving. It just adds so much tension to the scene. It's awesome.
What about the movie talk about music in movies, the movie Garden State, Zach Braff movie, and there's this what I think is a fairly iconic scene where where Zach Braff and Natalie Portman are in this waiting room, and that's when they first meet, and she's listening to music and she hands the headphones over and he listens, and it's a Shins song, right? And look, it's great, but there are so many funny parodies of that online on YouTube that I encourage people to look for, of like where because it's supposed to be it's a very earnest kind of scene and very serious, and but people have like overdubbed different like it's like Rick Astley or things like that, and he puts it on and he's got, while he's listening to this other song, he's still like really feeling it. It's very, very funny. You've got to look for it.
A great shadow to that story where I was in high school. I wasn't a particularly charismatic young man with the ladies, put it that way. And I was listening to this. I was listening to Angel Dust by Faith No More on my mini disc player. And literally the most beautiful girl in our year walks up and she's like, "Hey," and I'm like, "Oh, hey." She's like, "What are you listening to?" I'm like, "Faith No More." And she's like, "Oh, can I listen?" And it just happened to be like the weirdest song on that record, which is RV. It's like got some jaunty piano and some guy goes, "Yep, I sweat a lot," and he's talking about his kids and he's living in an RV. I'm like, "Oh."
Yeah.
And I gave her the headphones. She put them in. She's like, She never spoke to me again.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And look at you now, Stu.
Oh, that reminds me. That reminds me a little bit of the one time I took a girl on a date to the fucking Flintstones movie. I mean, what was I thinking?
It was
like,
what
was I thinking?
It was a blockbuster. Yeah. Come on.
Smooth.
Yeah. What next?
Yabba dabba doo. All right. Sabian just said, "Thank you, Sabian. I'm clapping by smacking my face." That's great.
And he said, "Finish him.
Finish him." Perhaps you could do a Basement Birds virtual reunion.
We could
but
do
that would involve getting Steve Parkin one place at one time.
I think it's in one place at one time. It's just, unfortunately, they don't have internet connection.
Catherine Harrity. She's put her hand up for Empire Records as her favorite.
Oh, yeah. They're cool.
Another one of the same era. Yep. Scott Hayward, the soundtrack from Ralph Macchio Crossroads goes all right. You don't mind that
Bit
guitar
of Satriani.
solo?
Yes.
Oh, Steve Vai, wasn't
Yeah,
it? He,
yeah.
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And Stevie Ray, I think it was.
Yeah.
All right, Charmaine Mainwell. Now that we are all feeling more comfortable with online musical collaborations, who would you like to collaborate with in the future, Aussie or overseas musicians?
Kevin Mitchell.
Yeah, I'd like to do a Kevin Mitchell track.
It's weird. Like, it's funny how often this question comes up. And to be honest with you, like, I find collaboration really quite difficult. The only times that I've done it where it's been fun and it's worked has been when it's with people that I already know. And so it's not something that I seek out. It really isn't. And if I have to be honest as well, like most of the people that I've would like to have collaborated with, I have, and that's just because I don't. There's lots of people, Kev. But no, I mean, it's like.
So you're basically a grumpy old man, is what you're saying.
I just, it's just not something that is in my.
Do you know?
I don't think about it.
I was thinking about the same thing because we get in these Say Something sessions. This is probably the most commonly asked question, like, who would you like to collaborate with?
It comes up all the time, right?
And I took it away last time and I thought about it. And
it's a very popular thing these days.
And you always just drops the first person that comes to your head. But I would have to say, honestly, if I could collaborate with someone, it would actually be an author, like a writer, like having someone who's a writer who you really give you some lyrics and go turn that into a song. Someone who's not musical, like
I love that.
Maybe like Margaret Atwood. I know she's super popular now because of The Handmaid's Tale, but I've been a huge Margaret Atwood fan for years, and she writes poetry and all the rest of it. So Margaret, if you're listening to this Say Something session, obviously, we're up for a collaboration.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great point, Cav. Like working with people that are sort of more outside of your kind of artistic sort of zone is really exciting. You know, just the first collaboration that comes to mind talking about that kind of thing is like, say, a band like the Gorillaz, you know, and Damon Albarn, what's his name? Something Howlett. What's the artist's name?
Howlett, yeah.
That was really cool, and that kind of thing appeals to me definitely a lot. But at the same time, you know, having said that, I should also say that I did. On the record that I just made, there is a song with a guest singer. So I guess I do seek out collaboration from time to time.
Would you say is having someone guest on something you've already
it's not the same. It's not the same as like creating something from scratch.
The saxophone player is probably more of a collaboration.
Yeah.
They just.
But what Stu said as well too about how maybe it's a very modern phenomenon because it's just so common now for songs to be featuring somebody else that like everybody does that now, particularly in the kind of, you know, the pop world or the charting kind of world. Everything's just like featuring. So maybe the reason why so many people ask that question now is because they hear so much more artists collaborating with each other. And so
I thought a really good example of collaboration was that Nick Cave movie. I think it's like 20,000.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah,
it was like a documentary, but it was this kind of art. It kind of blurred the lines between film clip and documentary. And made a great collaboration between him and the filmmaker.
Yeah,
I know this is like a nerdy segue, but my favorite collaboration of recent was I literally dusted off my old computer, my old PC. I haven't booted it up for about 4 years. And I bought this game because I saw a review of this game and it was like this really open world, really barren, sparse, sort of like looks like you're in Iceland kind of thing, lugging this backpack around. I was like, yeah, that's cool. And they've got like Mads Mikkelsen and some other actor to do all the acting roles. And it's got a professional, like, you know, cinematographer and soundscape, like, because the computer gaming industry is worth more than music and film combined.
What are we doing? And why are we here?
But like,
why are we making
this game is like, I've probably played 5 minutes of actual game and then spent half an hour just watching the movie, basically. And it's gripping, like it's awesome. It's
What's it called?
It's called Death Stranding. and it's Death Stranding. It's like this global. It was a global event. Like it's I don't even know what it's about yet because they're kind of teasing it, but it's like so deeply cinematic and all these amazing landscapes, and I'm just like, this is cool.
Yeah.
All right,
yeah.
All right, let's go another. And my daughter introduced me to EJ's music many years ago. Wendy Turnbull.
Thank you, Wendy.
Would you be any relation to Sarah Turnbull by any chance?
Possibly. Lisa Huntley said Rocky Horror is the best. Yep.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that is a great. Like, let's just for a second just talk about a little Rocky Horror, because I'd like to go there, because I can remember my older brother Brett, the drummer in Jebediah. He introduced me to that movie. He was, you know, he's 3 years older than me, and so he was the one that would always bring the weird, scary shit home from the video store, like, you know, like horror movies and just really out there kind of stuff. For somebody of my age, like pre-pubescent kid, and Rocky Horror was one of those videos that he brought, and I watched it, and it was just like nothing I'd ever seen before.
Nothing,
it was deeply affected me, like, not just because the music is fantastic, brilliant songs and some awesome performances, but it's like, I just for a 12-year-old kid, which I think I probably was when I saw it, that was like pretty on the edge kind of shit.
They managed to show you. They managed to show so much, like you say, on the edge stuff, but you don't even realize any of it when you're that young. Really global consciousness about, you know, cross-dressing and all that sort of thing. It's just like, oh, look at this wacky guy.
Yeah.
And the music was phenomenal, obviously.
Tim Curry, though, like his performance is fucking off the hook, man. He is so in character.
It's incredible.
My favorite song, I reckon, on the soundtrack is "There's a Light." I think it's called. It's like the darkness of the night.
It's interesting. You watch that whole movie, and I never even realized I was watching a musical, even though they're singing the whole time.
No, you can watch the first half of the movie and then you turn it off, because the second half is awful.
It gets a bit long.
But the first half is really good. So, yeah.
All right, Forrest Gump has a good soundtrack. That is true. Yeah.
Oh, Good Morning Vietnam, also a bit of a classic.
Yeah, I love that movie when I saw it. I used to love Robin Williams movies. Yeah. I was a massive fan of him.
Yeah.
Cooper Gillett, Cooper Gillett. Thank you. Shout outs to Cooper, who's been to every one of these. His question is, how did Fraser Kringle become your current drummer? He seems quite young. You can get fucked, Cooper.
We're young. Well, we just wanted a little bit of crumpet for the ladies and the men and everyone in between. We've been watching Cooper for a while playing with Red Jezebel, who's one of our Fraser. We've been watching Cooper on. We've been watching Fraser play with Red Jez, and you would know Red Jez. They are, if you haven't heard Red Jezebel, they're an amazing person.
Yeah, they're
great. Underrated. Every record is like spot on and super cool. Anyway, so he's the current drummer of Red Jez and has played with them for a good 5 years now.
He's an amazing drummer. It's so good.
Yeah. And so we watched him play, and we were just like, he's great. And
I hadn't even seen him play, actually. I just heard his on that Coup de Grace record. I heard he played the drums. I was like, that's such a good album. And I'd heard that he just walked in and killed it. So we just auditioned him and he killed it. One
of the really interesting things, and I'm sure you've experienced this as well, Kev, in your time having session players as opposed to core band members. In Eskies, it's always been the three of us, well, just the two of us now. But we've had these different people come in, and they bring, even though we write and record everything ourselves in the studios, like the session guys come in and they bring in their own flavor, personality, as well as how they play, and it's really invigorating. And having someone like Fraser come in, he like brought in like a new energy. And the guy who was playing with us before for a long time was a chap called Nick Johnson, and he was amazing. Loved playing with him. You never want people to leave most of the time when they leave your band, because you feel very attached. But they're playing your music. They probably want to go off and do their own thing. How's your experience been, Kev, with some of the people you've played with over the years?
Oh, look, it's been pretty excellent on the whole. I guess my first real experience of working with session musicians was when I made 2 Bob records in Nashville, and they were all real seasoned older musicians that, you know, kind of made me feel at times a little bit inadequate. They, you know, they were just so good. It's like they were too good for me to even direct, you know. It was just they were amazing. So that was as a first kind of introduction to that. It was pretty unusual, but since then, you know, having put bands together in Australia, and the band that I made the record with that I've got at the moment, you know, like someone like Ash Naylor on guitar is
I love
just
Ash. He's a legend.
Yeah, I just love. Well, I love him as a person, and I love his guitar playing, and he just totally. I guess like you have a vision for how you want the songs to sound, but with Ash, I just knew that like I wrote a bunch of riffs and a bunch of lines, but I knew that I needed somebody who would be able to play that and with the same kind of intent that I did, but then also add all this other stuff that I just couldn't. So it's kind of like saying, okay, take this and do that, but then add this to it. And I just knew that he would be able to do that.
Ash is amazing.
Yeah, he's brilliant.
I met him. I think I met him a few times before, but I probably got to know him probably on when yourself and
Dylan,
and Josh,
yeah.
everyone, we did this Dylan tribute concert, which was super fun, and you know, got to play a bunch of really, really cool songs. I never really got into Dylan as much, but we had this one night we were having beers on the balcony, and I was talking about being a parent and about how, you know, every once in a while it would be good to have a jetpack, just so you could just cruise off, you know, just into the sky as the family are yelling at you. And I was saying, you know, knowing me, I'd probably just like get up there and just be like, fuck it, and like light a joint off the burner and just and you know, we started to have this conversation, you know, but then of course with the jetpack comes great responsibility. You'd probably have to clean the gutters and do all these other things. And the jetpack wouldn't be this thing of freedom. So he convinced me to go back home after this tour and write a song called Jetpack Dad. And so I did. And
that's amazing.
Challenge was accepted, and so I wrote it, and it was all about being. It's pretty dark at the end because he blasts off, and it's just like, and as all of that, you know, the pressures are building up, and you know, because it's sung from the perspective of the kid who his dad is a superhero because he's a jetpack dad. And anyway, I sent it to Ash, and he's been trying to convince me ever since then to put it on a record. So
I love it.
Maybe Jetpack Dad
awesome.
can still come out. And so with your new record, you had Ash Naylor. Who else was in the band for your new record?
So on bass, Richard Bradbeer, who. So all the guys have been in my live band since 2016. Although Ash I've been playing with for longer than that, and Rich played a few shows with me before that as well. James Fleming playing organ and piano, and he's been with me since 2013. And Lachlan O'Kane playing drums, who's been with me for about the last 4 years. So yeah, all guys that we've toured together, we've played a lot together, and yeah, it was just a really good kind of, everything kind of fit into place, because when I started writing songs for this album, you know what it's like when you start writing songs and you have that, you start to kind of go, oh, okay, I can kind of see a pattern emerging, or I can see that the songs are kind of wanting to, they're leading me down a certain path. And the path that they were leading me down with was, you know, like a band, like a band playing in a room, in a more kind of traditional sense. Because all the records that I've made previously have been these very crafted kind of records, you know, where you lay down all the drums first, and you lay down all the bass, and and you're just crafting little bits and pieces. And there's never a time where you're just playing this, where everyone's just playing the song in a room, right? And so that was totally the record I wanted to make. And then it was one of those things that I realized, it's been staring me in the face. I can't believe it took me so long to realize it. It was like, oh fuck, I've got a band. I've got a fucking great band. that I've toured with that when we play live, I just think to myself, oh my God, like sharing the stage with these guys is incredible. They make my songs sound so good. It's like, oh shit, like I could just, I've already got a fucking band. I don't even need to think about this. I just need to get them all to be available for a week, you know, and you know, at the same time, which can be hard, yeah, for 5 people. We made the record just before.
Did you track live?
Yeah, we tracked everything live, and I overdubbed. So we did 6 days with everybody with the band just playing all the songs. So we did 11 songs in 6 days, and then we had a day off, and then we did another 6 days where I did all my vocals, and we overdubbed all the other bits and pieces, some brass stuff, just kind of coming up with things. But yeah, I've never made a record like that. Even Jebediah records were never made like that.
Yeah, it's so refreshing doing a live, just a live recording. Like, you do it in 4 takes, and you're like, yeah, that was good.
One of the songs, it's a song called Excuses. The take that's on the record is the second take.
Yeah.
It was kind of, we did the second take, and everyone was kind of like, oh, that felt pretty good. Should we go have a listen? Yeah, let's have a listen. So we went in, had a listen. It's kind of like, well, that sounds pretty good. Like we could go in and do it again, but like if everyone's happy with that, like we should just go like, let's just say that's good. It's good. Like we don't need to.
Like buying a shirt in an op shop. You're like, look, it's pretty good, and it's only $5, so let's just buy it. And then you get outside and you wear it the next day. You're like, this is awesome. Yeah. And so probably the next day you listen, and you're like, that was a really good take. I'm glad.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So Kev, before we go any deeper into this, we have about 4 minutes left, and I feel like maybe we should probably try and get one question in, and then I'd like to hear, like, you don't have to tell us the title of the record, but just when it comes out and all the rest of it. Let's get one last question.
So Chris Paddock, another question from Chris. Thanks for joining the live stream. At what moment did you guys find or discover the best collaboration on an album? So I guess we could just paraphrase that. So what is your favorite collaboration on an album?
On any album?
Jebs.
No,
on an album of yours. Or maybe on an album.
On an album, any album. What's your
fuck?
What's your favorite collaboration? God, there's so
okay.
Many. A few. I reckon Lux Prima was a good collaboration.
That was amazing.
I think that
Benji Mouse does.
Yeah, pretty much.
Kenny Rogers and Dolly Parton.
Oh,
that was
no, it's not Billy Island's in the Stream. I was about to sing.
But no, I thought you were going to say, "I love it when we're cruising." Yeah.
But no, what's a good collaboration?
Run DMC.
That's come from two different. Okay, yes.
That's
what I was going to say.
Yeah, big time.
Eris, that was awesome. That song came out around 1990, I reckon, 89, 90.
And I talked to my daddy, said
you ain't seen nothing to get down.
Told me how to change
Public Enemy and Anthrax. That song was awesome.
Kill the noise.
Yes.
Bring the noise.
That's one.
Yeah. What other really unexpected collaborations have there been that have been amazing? I'm trying to think, but that is a good example of one. What's a more modern one though? I'm just looking around at my CDs and records to try and get an idea.
Well, our last 2 minutes.
Okay.
Please tell us when does your record come out?
Okay, the record. I think the record is going to come out around April of 2021.
Whoa. Okay.
So I'm just going to add. I'm just getting in the way of your plug. Chris just wrote, for fuck's sake, on your albums. So we'll come back to you, Chris, after the plug. Here we go.
So April next year.
April next year.
April next year, yes. And yeah, the album is called Tomorrowland.
Oh, we got the scoop!
We got the scoop. Tomorrowland. Is that because that's your favorite?
Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody.
Cat's not listening. It's fine.
We share the same manager for everyone out there.
Just from time to time. And when do you reckon you'll actually get to play it live?
Well, I don't know when I'll get to play live with the full band, but I'm doing shows just down the road in Queenscliff, near where I live, and which is going to be, we don't have much time, but anyway, I'm doing 3 shows in one day at the same venue. There's like a 3 o'clock show, a 5:30 show, and an 8 o'clock show.
That is old
I've
school.
never done before, and
I-
it's all dinner show, like seated.
Yeah, I did a similar thing when we were kind of still in pretty much lockdown here when the venues first opened up. There's a beautiful venue in just down the road from where I live called the Duke, which is like a jazz kind of club. Amazing sound, all seated kind of dinner theater kind of thing. And I did 2 shows in a night, and it was the weirdest thing because I realized in my entire career as a musician, I've never done 2 shows in a day.
But didn't you used to do all ages?
Well,
Yeah,
like
all ages shows.
all ages.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you do your TAFE show or whatever, but this is like back to back. Like I literally went on stage, did it, got off stage for about 15 minutes.
Half hour, yeah.
They got
Oh,
everyone out of the
wow.
room. The next group come in and
Yeah.
do it. And the first show I was like, that was good. I don't think I can top that. And then the next show was way better. So
Yeah, cool.
Well, I'm doing that 3 times.
wow.
So I've never done that before. I've done 2 shows in a day, lots and lots of times, but 3 like that, never before. So that's going to be a really unusual introduction to back into live performing again. But that, that's 2020. But yeah, then I'll tour the record obviously next year, and hopefully by the time the record comes out, we'll be in a position where there's a little bit more freedom to be able to, I don't know, just put on shows the way that we used to. I don't think things will necessarily just go back to how they used to be exactly, but hopefully by sort of April, May, June next year, we're experiencing a bit more a level of normalcy, like and hopefully to Australia wide, because it feels like for the last few months, different states in Australia have been experiencing this situation so differently from each other.
Yeah.
So I feel like we're starting to get to a point now where, particularly with Victoria going so well, where maybe we might start to kind of come back together again. Like the borders will kind of open up again, and we won't be so kind of separated by not just by borders but by experience as well.
But your attitudes of people actually feeling like they want to be in a room with lots of
people.
But Kevin Mitchell, aka Bob Evans, this is where we leave you, my friend. Thank you very much for being part of our Say Something session.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It was amazing. And who's that other guy?
I don't even think we need Joel anymore.
No,
honestly.
No.
Yeah.
I had lots of questions. I had so many questions I wanted to ask Joel, but
you didn't ask us any questions.
Didn't I?
Spoiler alert, we do actually need Joel. So come back soon,
Yeah,
Joel.
we love you, Joel. Until next time, my friend, and we're in
Thanks,
the
guys.
Looking forward to it. Catch you later, and thank you everyone.
Take care.
Listening. We won't be doing another session this year because Christmas is about to happen. But
And you can't top this one, so
yeah, we can. This is
We'll pin this one.
Yeah. So we will see everyone next year. Love you all. Thank you very, very much for being fans and making us able to do what we can do. Big thanks to Kev for being a good sport. And until next time, my friends, we will see you later.
see ya.